The gift of cruelty. The arena lights were blinding. The noise was like thunder, thousands of alien voices cheering, laughing. Waiting for the next show, a metal door creaked open at the far end. Out of the shadows, she stumbled forward. The alien girl was thin, weak, and covered in bruises. Her silver skin was dirty, her long hair tangled like seaweed. The strange blue glow in her eyes was dim, as if someone had stolen all her strength. Chains rattled on her wrists and ankles. She didn't look at the crowd. She didn't even try to walk with dignity. Her head stayed down, as if she had learned long ago that looking up only brought pain. Then, from the other side, another door opened. A human stepped out. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a steady walk. The crowd shifted in their seats. Humans were rare here. He didn't wear chains. His hands were free. But his expression wasn't the proud smirk they expected. The announcer's voice exploded from the speakers, deep and mocking. Ladies and gentlemen of the outer rings, for tonight's entertainment, the voice stretched the word like a cruel joke. We present a gift to our new human guest. The crowd roared in excitement. The human stood still, watching the girl as two large alien guards shoved her toward him. She is yours now, the announcer continued, broken, obedient, and very entertaining. The alien girl didn't react. She had heard these words before. She had been given many times, each time to someone who saw her as a toy or a tool. But the human, he didn't smile. He didn't cheer. He looked at her bruised face, at the scars on her arms. Then he asked softly, so only she could hear, "Who did this to you?" The girl's lips parted, but no words came. She didn't know if it was a trick. Kindness here usually came before pain. The announcer's voice boomed again. We expect a fine performance tonight. Show us what humans do with their pets. The crowd chanted. Some threw coins. Others shouted disgusting suggestions. The human ignored them all. He stepped forward, placing himself between the girl and the guards. She needs food, he said simply. The nearest guard laughed. She needs to learn her place. The human's eyes narrowed, and that place is not here. The laughter turned into cold stares. The guards didn't like his tone. The crowd didn't like his hesitation. But the human didn't care. He reached out, gently placing his hand on the alien girl's shoulder. She flinched, her whole body shaking like a trapped animal. It's okay, he said softly. I won't hurt you. She looked up for the first time. Her eyes, pale blue like frozen oceans, met his. For a second, the noise of the arena faded. She searched his face, looking for the cruelty she had seen in every other owner. She didn't find it. That was the moment the human made his decision. Whatever this place was, whoever these people were, he would not be like them. The guards shoved the girl toward the human's quarters. The human followed, pretending to obey. He needed to play along, at least for now. Inside, the room was small, but private. Metal walls, a single bed, a table with stale bread and a pitcher of water. The girl stood in the corner, her back against the wall, watching him carefully. He sat at the table, tore the bread in half, and pushed it toward her. Eat, he said. She didn't move. You think it's poisoned? He asked, almost smiling. It's not, I promise. Slowly, she stepped forward. She took the bread in trembling hands and bit into it like someone who hadn't eaten in days. The human leaned back, studying her. Do you have a name? He asked. She chewed in silence. Then, after a long pause, she whispered something he almost didn't catch. Lyra. Lyra, he repeated. I'm Jace. The way she said her name, Mitt wasn't proud. It was just a fact, like a number. Jace could tell she hadn't been called by it in a long time. That night, Jace lay on the bed while Lyra curled up on the floor in the farthest corner. He could hear the faint hum of the cameras hidden in the walls. They were watching, waiting for him to break her further. Instead, he closed his eyes and thought about something dangerous, something the crowd would hate. He thought about how to heal her far above the arena in a dark control room. The alien overseer watched the screen with narrow eyes. "This one is strange," the overseer said. "Humans are supposed to be predictable." Beside him, the announcer shrugged. "He'll break. They all do." But the overseer wasn't so sure. And down in the small, cold room, Jace made a silent promise. "I will find out who hurt you, Lyra, and I will make them pay." First Defiance the next morning, the arena was quieter. The crowds wouldn't arrive until evening, but the station never truly slept. Somewhere in the distance, metal doors slammed, chains rattled, and voices barked orders in alien tongues. Inside Jace's small room, the air was cold. Lyra sat in the corner, knees pulled to her chest, eyes fixed on the floor. She had not spoken. Since last night, Jace had been awake for hours. He was thinking. Watching the cameras in the corners, he kept his face calm, his movements slow. The overseers were always watching for weakness, for signs of rebellion. He was about to speak to Lyra when the door hissed open. 2 alien guards stepped inside. They were tall and insect-like, their armor made of black chitin plates that clicked when they moved. "She comes with us," the first one said, his voice like a grinding saw. "For tonight's games," the other added, smiling in a way that wasn't. Friendly Jace didn't move from where he sat at the table. "Games?" he asked. "Entertainment," the first guard said. "She's property. She performs when we say." Lyra's shoulders tightened. Her fingers dug into her knees. She didn't look up, but her breathing became quick and shallow. The guards stepped toward her. That's when Jace stood. He moved without thinking, putting himself between them and Lyra. "She's not going anywhere." He said. The guards froze for a second, surprised at the interruption. Then they laughed a deep, ugly sound. "She belongs to the crowd," one of them said. "You were given a gift, human. Do you plan to break it already?" Jace took a step forward, close enough that his shadow fell over the guards. His voice was calm, but every word carried weight. "She's not broken," he said. "Not anymore." The laughter stopped. The second guard's smile twisted in two. Something darker. "Do you know what happens to humans who say no to us?" Jace didn't answer. He just stood there, blocking their path. Without warning, the first guard shoved him hard in the chest. The impact sent Jace back a step, but he didn't move aside. "Move," the guard hissed. "No," Jace said. The second guard swung his arm a sharp backhand, meant to send Jace to the floor. But Jace caught it mid-swing. His fingers clamped around the alien's wrist like iron. The guard's eyes widened. He tried to pull back, but Jace held firm. "You'll regret that," the first guard said. Reaching for the shock rod on his belt, Jace released the other's wrist and stepped forward again. "If you take her," he said, his voice low, "you'll have to go through me." There was a tense pause. The hum of the cameras seemed louder than the air itself. Finally, the first guard snarled and lowered his weapon. "Fine. Keep your broken toy. Tonight, the overseer will deal with you himself." They left, the door hissing shut behind them. When they were gone, Jace turned to Lyra. She was staring at him with wide, unblinking eyes. You stop them," she whispered. Jace nodded. "They're not taking you back there. Ever." Her lips parted like she wanted to argue, but the words didn't come. She just sat there, watching him as if trying to understand something impossible. "You don't understand," she said finally. "They will kill you for that." "Maybe," Jace said. but I'd rather die than watch them hurt you again. Hours later, word of the incident had spread. The corridors whispered with alien voices, some amused, some angry, some curious. It wasn't common for a new human to survive his first week without obeying every order. That evening, the overseer himself appeared at Jace's door. He was a tall, reptilian alien draped in a black cloak, his scales glinting in the low light. His eyes were narrow, cold, and intelligent. "You made a mistake today," the overseer said. His voice was soft, but it carried a weight that pressed. "Against the walls, I protected what's mine," Jace said. The overseer tilted his head. "She is not yours. She belongs to the crowd. To me, not anymore." The overseer smiled a slow, sharp curve of his mouth. "Very well. If you will not give her to the games will come for you." When he left, Jace locked the door and sat down beside Lyra. She hadn't moved from her corner. "You shouldn't have done that," she said again, her voice almost breaking. "Maybe not," Jace admitted. "But I'm not like them, and I'm not going to start now." 4. The first time, she looked at him without fear. Not trust, not yet, but something warmer, something fragile, outside. The arena's bells began to ring, summoning the crowd for the next event. Jace knew they wouldn't wait long to test him, and when the test came, it wouldn't be a fair fight. The fractures showed the night after Jace's defiance. The arena seemed to breathe differently. The noise was sharper, the laughter crueler. Rumors spread through the crowd like sparks about the human who refused, the human who dared. Inside his quarters, Jace sat at the table, sharpening a dull knife he had found in the food crate. He wasn't sure if the cameras could hear the scrape of metal, but he didn't care. His mind was busy planning, not for escape yet, but for survival. Lyra sat near the far wall, knees tucked close, chewing slowly on a piece of bread. She had been watching him for the last hour without speaking. Finally, her voice broke the silence. "Why?" Jace looked up. "Why what?" "Why aren't you hurting me?" she asked. The words landed heavy between them. Her tone wasn't hope-filled, was suspicious, confused, as if kindness was a trap she had seen before. Jace set the knife down. "Because you've had enough pain." She tilted her head, studying him with those pale blue eyes. "You don't understand this place. Pain is all there is." For a moment, neither spoke. Then Lyra's gaze dropped to the floor, and her voice went distant, as if she were no longer in the room. "I used to fight," she said, "before they changed me." Jace leaned forward. "Changed you how?" Her fingers traced the thin scars along her arms. "They made me forget who I was. Every day, the games, the punishments, they kept telling me I was nothing, that I belonged to them." Her voice trembled, but there was a coldness underneath its anger, buried deep, like a blade under ice. Before Jace could speak, the door slid open. 2 guards entered, carrying a small, cube-shaped device. They set it in the middle of the room. "Entertainment feed," one of them said. "Tonight, you watch." The device hummed, and the sides unfolded like petals. A projection filled the wall images of the arena from above. Jace frowned. The games had started. 2 alien prisoners fought against a massive, insect-like creature. The crowd roared with every scream, every spray of blood. Lyra didn't look away. Her eyes followed every move, but her expression was unreadable. "You've been in that ring?" Jay said quietly. "Yes," she replied. "Many times, and you survived." Her lips curved in something that wasn't quite a smile. "Survived is not the same as living." One of the guards laughed. "She was one of the best, before she broke." Jace turned sharply toward him. "Broke? Or did you just take everything from her?" The guard ignored him, shutting down the projection. "Tomorrow, human, The overseer wants you in the ring." When they left, the silence felt heavier than before. Jace sat down again, leaning forward on the table. "You were a fighter," he said. "That means you can be again." Lyra's head snapped up. "No, that's gone." "No," Jace said firmly. "It's not. They didn't take it, they buried it. You just have to dig it out." She shook her head. "You don't understand. The moment you fight back, they break you harder. You'll end up like me." Jace's jaw tightened. "Then they'll have to break me 1,000 times." For the first time, something flickered in her eyes, a spark, faint, but real. She didn't speak again that night, but she watched him as he worked the blade until it gleamed under the dull light. Later, when Jace finally lay down, he dreamed. He saw the arena full of fire, the crowd screaming not in joy, but in fear. He saw himself standing with Lyra at his side, both of them, unchained. When he woke, the cameras were still humming. And Lyra was sitting on the bed's edge, staring at him. "You really mean it," she said softly. Jace rubbed his eyes. "Mean what?" "That you'll fight for me?" "Yes." She looked away quickly, as if hiding something. "Then you should." "No. Tomorrow, they won't send just a beast. They'll send a message." Far above, in the control room, the overseer watched the recording from their quarters. "He's changing her," one of the officers said. The overseer narrowed his eyes. "Then we will remind her what she is." And with a few taps on the console. Tomorrow's match was set something not seen in the arena for years. Down below, Jace and Lyra sat in silence. Neither of them knew exactly what waited for them in the ring. But both knew one thing. Tomorrow, everything would change. The breaking point, the roar of the arena, was deafening. Jace stood in the center of the sand, his boots sinking slightly. With each step, the heat from the lights above pressed down like a weight. Across from him, the massive gates were still closed, but he could hear it low, heavy breathing on the other side. Something huge waited in the dark. Lyra stood behind him, her wrists shackled together, her eyes darting across the arena walls. The crowd's screams weren't for her, they were for what was about to happen to him. The announcer's voice cut through the noise. "Welcome, citizens of the Outer Rings. Tonight, the human fights. Not for glory, not for wealth, but for the life of the broken one." The crowd exploded in laughter and cheers. The gates slammed open. A massive creature crawled out, its 6 legs stabbing into the sand like spears. Its body was armored in black, spiked plates, and its mouth was a nightmare rows of jagged teeth dripping with thick saliva. Lyra's breath caught. "It's a Turvak," she whispered. Jic didn't know the name, but he understood the danger. The thing was twice his height and moved like a predator that had killed 100 times before. A guard tossed a spear into the sand at Jace's feet. "Fight or die," the guard called. J. It didn't reach for it. Instead, he glanced over his shoulder. "Stay behind me," the Turvak roared, charging forward with terrifying speed. The ground shook under its weight. Jace sidestepped at the last second, feeling the rush of air as its claws slashed past him. The crowd booed no blood, yet the creature spun, its tail whipping through the air. Jace ducked, the sharp tip grazing his shoulder and tearing through his shirt. "Jace." Lyra cried out. "I'm fine," he called back, though the sting of pain told him otherwise. The Turvak lunged again. This time, Jace grabbed the spear from the sand and planted it into the ground as the beast came forward. The weapon splintered against its armor, barely slowing it. The impact knocked Jace back into the sand. The crowd cheered at the sight of him on the ground. The Turvak raised a claw for the killing blow. "Move," Lyra shouted. Jace rolled aside just as the claw came down, shattering the sand where his head had been. He scrambled to his feet, grabbing the broken spear tip. The fight became a dance of survival. Jace moved fast, never staying in one place. The Turvak's armor was too thick, but its joints there. Ha! He thought those were softer. He dove forward, ramming the spear tip into the gap under its front leg. The beast roared, jerking back in pain, its claws slicing the air dangerously close to his face. The crowd gasped not because the human fought well, but because he still stood. But Jace wasn't just fighting for himself. Every time the Turvak turned toward Lyra, his chest tightened. He kept putting himself between them, forcing the monster to face him instead. Lyra watched, her hands trembling in their chains. Something inside her, something she thought was gone, stirred. She saw the way he fought, not for blood, but for her. No one had ever done that. The Turvak's tail lashed out, catching Jace across the ribs and sending him crashing into the wall. Pain exploded through his side. He staggered up, coughing, his vision blurring. "Jace, stop!" Lyra cried. "They'll kill you!" He turned his head toward her. Even bleeding, he smiled. "Not before I get you out of here." The beast charged again. This time, Jace didn't dodge. He stepped forward, grabbing one of its claws and forcing himself closer to its head. With the broken spear tip in his other hand, he drove it into the softer flesh under its jaw. The Turvak let out a scream that rattled the arena walls. It thrashed wildly, trying to shake him off. Jace dropped to the sand, rolling clear just as the beast collapsed in a heap, twitching and bleeding. For a heartbeat, the arena was silent. Then the crowd erupted, half in rage, half in awe. The announcer's voice returned, dripping with false cheer. "Well, it seems our human guest has survived, but how long will his luck hold?" The gates opened again, and guards poured into the arena. They didn't take Jace. They took Lyra. Jace's heart slammed in his chest. He grabbed one guard's arm. "Where are you taking her?" To remind her what she is, the guard hissed, "Jace." Didn't think. He lunged, but another guard's shock rod slammed into his side, sending white-hot pain through his body. The last thing he saw before hitting the sand was Lyra's face, size wide, mouth open in a silent cry. The guards dragged her away. The healing begins. The door slid open hours later. Two guards shoved Lyra inside. She stumbled forward and hit the floor hard. The door shut again with a hiss, leaving the room in silence except for her uneven breathing. Jace was already on his feet. He had been pacing since they dragged her away. Now, seeing her in the dim light, his fists clenched so tight they ached. Her cheek was bruised. A fresh cut ran along her jaw. The once neat braids in her silver hair were gone, replaced by tangles and dried blood. Her wrists were raw where the shackles had rubbed. He knelt beside her. "Lyra," he said softly, "talk to me." She didn't look at him. She kept her eyes on the floor, her body still trembling from whatever they had done to her. Jace reached for the small water jug on the table and set it beside her. "Drink." Slowly, she picked it up with both hands and took a sip. The water dripped from her chin onto the cold floor. "What did they do?" he asked. Her voice was flat. "They reminded me." "Reminded you of what?" "That I am nothing." Jace's jaw tightened. He didn't say anything for a long moment. Then he stood, crossed the room, and dug into the small supply box. The guards had left days ago when he came back. He had strips of cloth from an old shirt and a small tin of healing salve. "Hold still," he said. Lyra frowned. "Why?" "Because if you don't, this will sting more than it needs to." He began cleaning the cut on her jaw. She flinched at first, but didn't pull away. When he moved to wrap her wrists, she watched him carefully, as if trying to understand what he was doing. "You're wasting your time," she muttered. "Not to me," Jay said. When he finished, she sat quietly for a long time. Then, out of nowhere, she said, "Teach me." Jace blinked. "Teach you what?" "To fight again." He studied her face. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't even looking at him. But her voice had changed, was firmer, sharper. "What made you change your mind?" he asked. She kept her gaze on the wall. "When I saw you in the arena, you didn't fight for yourself. You fought for me. I want to fight for something again." Jace leaned back, a faint smile touching his lips. "All right. We start tomorrow." The next day, the training began. At first, it was simple stances, footwork, breathing. Jace had no proper weapons, so they used broken chair legs as sticks. Lyra's movements were slow, rusty. She stumbled often, cursed under her breath, but never stopped. The cameras watched everything. Jace knew the overseer would see this, but he didn't care. Again, Jace said after she missed a block. Her breath was heavy. "I'm not as fast as I used to be." "You will be," he said. "You're not weak, Lyra. You're out of practice." Days passed. Her strikes grew sharper. Her eyes became more alert. The hollow look in them started to fade, replaced by something that had been missing for a long time: purpose. One evening, while they practiced in the small space between the bed and the wall, a guard walked in unannounced. He sneered. "Teaching her tricks, human." Jace didn't answer. He just kept his stick raised, standing between the guard and Lyra. The guard laughed and stepped closer. "She'll never be a fighter again. She's broken." Before Jace could respond, Lyra moved. In one swift motion, she grabbed her stick and swung it hard into the guard's leg. The guard stumbled back, cursing in his alien tongue. "You'll pay for that," he spat before retreating. When the door closed, Jace turned to her. "You didn't hesitate," he said. She shrugged. He was in the way. Jace grinned. "That's the Lyra I want to see." That night, as they sat on the floor sharing a small meal, she asked quietly, "Do you think we can ever leave this place?" "Yes," Jace said, without hesitation. "But we have to be ready for when the chance comes, and when it does, we take it." For the first time, she didn't argue. She simply nodded. In the control room, the overseer watched the footage of Lyra striking the guard. "She's waking up," one of his officers said. The overseer's lips curled. "Good. Let her think she's strong again. It will make breaking her all the more satisfying." But in the small, dim room, Jace had no intention of letting that happen. He had seen the fire return to her eyes, and he knew one thing: Lyra was no longer broken. And soon, the overseer would find out just how dangerous that was. The escape plan: the station's corridors hummed with the steady sound of machinery. Jace had learned the rhythm by now: the shift changes, the guard patrols, the moments when a hallway would be empty for only a few heartbeats. He kept all of it in his head. That night, the cameras in their room shifted to standby mode for 2 minutes. Jace picked up a piece of charcoal from the small fire pit and knelt on the floor. Lyra watched as he began drawing lines on the metal surface. "What are you doing?" she whispered. "Making a map," Jace said quietly. She frowned. "Of what?" "Of the way out." The sketch grew quickly: long corridors, narrow maintenance shafts, service tunnels hidden behind bulkhead doors. Jace's hands moved with certainty, each line drawn from memory. Lyra leaned closer. "How do you know this?" "I've been watching, counting steps, listening to guard talk. I've also been testing things." Her eyes narrowed. "Testing? I've been pushing," he said. "Walking where they don't want me. Seeing how fast they react. I know where the gaps are now." She shook her head. "Jace, if we fail, they'll make us wish we had died." He looked at her, calm but serious. "Then we don't fail." Lyra studied the map again. "This tunnel here," she said, pointing to a narrow line. "I've seen it. They use it to bring in arena beasts." Jace nodded. "It connects to the cargo hold. And the cargo hold is docked to supply ships. We get there. We're gone for the next days." Their training changed. They still practiced fighting, but now Jace also drilled her on speed short sprints, climbing, crawling through tight spaces. He made her memorize every turn of the map until she could trace it in the dirt with her eyes closed. The guards noticed their growing energy, but none of them realized why. They thought the human was just making his pet stronger for the games. One evening, as they shared a small loaf of bread, Lyra asked, "When?" "Soon," Jace said. "We wait for the storm." She frowned. "Storm?" He smiled faintly. "Supply storms. When a shipment comes in, security is split between the docks and the arena. Less eyes on us, and if they notice." "Oh, guys," she asked. Jace shrugged. "Then we fight our way out." The next day, the storm came. The bells rang in the distance deep, echoing gongs that signaled a supply ship's arrival. The guards in the corridor hurried past, speaking in their sharp alien tongue. Jace stood near the door, listening. "Now," he whispered. When the door opened for the food delivery, he moved fast. The guard stepped in, tray in hand, then staggered as Jace slammed his shoulder into him. The tray clattered to the floor, scattering bread across the metal. Lyra didn't hesitate. She grabbed the fallen shock rod and jammed it into the guard's side. The alien dropped with a groan. They ran. The corridors were alive with noise alarms. For the incoming ship, shouting guards, the clank of machinery. Jace led the way, taking turns so fast, Lyra barely had time to think. They darted into a maintenance shaft, crawling through the narrow space on hands and knees. Lyra's breath was sharp in her ears. "How much farther?" "Halfway," Jace said. They dropped into a storage room, stacked high with crates. The air smelled of oil and metal. Footsteps echoed outside. Jace grabbed Lyra's wrist and pulled her behind a tall stack, just as two guards passed by. Lyra pressed her back against the crate, her heart pounding. "Jace, they'll know we're gone soon." "They already do," he whispered. "That's why we keep moving." They slipped out the back door and into the beast tunnel. The air here was heavy with the scent of blood and fur. Chains hung from the walls, some still stained from past fights at the far end. The cargo hold doors loomed to massive slabs of metal, half open to let in the docking clamps. Beyond them, Lyra could see a glimpse of space and the shadow of the supply ship. Her breath caught. "That's it," Jace said. "But there will be guards." They moved closer, keeping low. Two guards stood at the entrance, their backs to them, watching the cargo workers. Jace leaned toward Lyra. "We take them fast. Quiet if we can." She nodded. They moved like shadows. Jace grabbed the first guard from behind, locking an arm around his throat until he dropped. Lyra swung the shock rod into the second guard's knee, then his head. Dropping him hard, they dragged the bodies into the shadows. Just as they stepped toward the cargo doors, the alarms changed. The deep gong was replaced by a high, sharp wail. "They know," Jace said. The overhead speakers crackled to life. "Human, girl, there is nowhere to run." The overseer's voice was calm, almost amused. "Turn back now, and your punishment will be lighter." Lyra looked at Jace. "What now?" He tightened his grip on her wrist. "We run faster. Freedom or death." The cargo hold shook with the sound of the high alarm. Red lights flashed across the walls, painting everything in urgent shadows. Jace and Lyra ran across the open floor, boots thudding against the metal. The half-open docking gate was ahead. Beyond it, the supply ship waited like their one lifeline to freedom. Behind them, voices shouted. The sound of boots multiplied. The overseer's guards were coming fast. They reached the gate, but the airlock controls were locked. With a glowing red panel, Jace slammed his hand against it. Override. He barked. Lyra glanced back. Shapes were appearing in the doorway, armed guards in black armor. They're here, she said. Jace's jaw tightened. Then we hold them. The first two guards charged. Jace met them head-on, swinging the stolen shock rod in a tight arc that cracked across the first guard's helmet. He pivoted, catching the second in the ribs before kicking him back. Lyra stayed low, darting forward to sweep one guard's legs from under him. She moved faster now, sharper. Every lesson Jace taught her burned into her muscles. But more were coming. From the far end of the hold, the overseer stepped through the chaos. His black cloak flowed around him, his reptilian eyes cold and steady. "You think you can leave my arena?" he called over the noise. "There is no outside for you, human. There is only the games." Jace didn't answer. He just moved in front of Lyra, keeping himself between her and the overseer. The overseer raised his hand, and the guard stopped. He stepped closer, the sound of his claws clicking against the metal. "I could have made you a legend," he said. "But you chose to waste yourself on this broken thing." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "I'm not broken." The overseer's gaze shifted to her. "We will see." Without warning, he lunged. Jace met him in the middle, their bodies slamming together. The overseer was faster than any guard, and his claws sliced across Jace's arm, leaving a deep, burning line. Jace gritted his teeth, swinging the shock rod into the overseer's side. The alien staggered, but not for long. They traded blows, Jace's raw strength against the overseer's speed. Sparks flew as the shock rod clashed with the overseer's armored bracers. Lyra saw her chance. She darted to the airlock controls and ripped off the panel, exposing the wires inside. Her hands moved quickly, searching, pulling, twisting. The overseer saw her and roared, "Stop her!" Two guards rushed forward, but Jace blocked them, taking a heavy punch to the ribs in the process. "Lyra," he shouted. "Now." She yanked. The last wire free, and the panel's red glow shifted to green. The airlock began to open with a deep hiss. The overseer's eyes went wide. He shoved Jace back and lunged for Lyra. Jace didn't think he threw himself into the overseer's path, tackling him hard to the ground. The impact rattled his bones, but he held on, locking his arms around the alien's neck. "Go," he roared. Lyra hesitated for a fraction of a second. She could leave. She could run now and be free. But the thought of Jace falling here, it twisted something inside her. She turned back. Grabbing a loose metal rod from the floor, she swung it with all her strength into the overseer's head. The alien snarled, his grip loosening. Jace rolled away, coughing, and pulled himself to his feet. "Move." They ran together into the airlock. Behind them, the overseer staggered to his feet, fury burning in his eyes. Guards charged after them, but the airlock door began to slide shut. The overseer reached it just in time to slam his clawed hand against the narrowing gap. His cold gaze locked on Jace. "This isn't over," he hissed. Jace met his stare. "The light is for you." The door sealed with a final, heavy thud. Inside the supply ship, everything felt quieter. They moved quickly through the narrow corridors, ignoring the startled workers. In minutes, the ship's engines roared to life. The view through the small porthole changed the cold black of space stretching out before them as the station shrank. In the distance, Lyra pressed her hand against the glass. Watching the lights of the arena fade, Jace stood beside her, breathing heavily. His arms still bled, his ribs ached, but he was alive. They both were. "You did it," he said. "We did it," she corrected. They looked at each other for a long moment. No more chains. No more crowds. No more overseer, for now they were free. But far behind them, in the shadow of the station, the overseer watched the small ship disappear into the stars. His claws tapped slowly against the control panel. He had lost them. For now, and he would not forget.